Morning, Dan. Robert, good morning.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Great. How are you guys?
Nice and warm. I
And
lived in Scottsdale for 5.5 years. It's, familiar with your area.
you know what we're going through.
Yeah,
It rained last night. We got poured on. It was first monsoon of the season at the end of the monsoons. How horrible is that?
yeah, that's rare for you guys.
Oh, man.
That water sits on top and just floods, right?
Yeah, we had some pretty bad flooding last night. This is the worst monsoon we've had, I think, in like 20 something years.
Wow.
So everything's soaking into the ground, but then when it goes like that, yeah, we have flooding on the freeways. I mean, it's
You know where Pinnacle Peak Mountain is in northeast Scottsdale?
absolutely.
I lived about 400 yards east of there in a place called Desert Summit.
Oh yeah.
And they were just building the Four Seasons Resort when we moved there in the fall of '99.
Oh wow. Yeah. God, I've stayed at that resort a couple times. I love it there.
We left in March of '05. Went to
Okay.
Boise, Idaho, of all places.
Oh wow. What made you go over there?
My wife was a buyer for Albertsons at the time. So we were there for a year. Long story short, moved to Boca in '06.
Smart. Well, a little more exciting.
Yeah.
Hey Miguel, how are you, man?
Doing good. Well, sort of.
Perfect.
I'm still getting over shingles, so it's
Oh,
Oh boy.
yeah.
you're, you're
I thought it
still
was.
on here. You're
Sorry.
still on the Zoom. Look at that.
No reason to stop doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
I
Hey,
Good morning.
Jason, I feel like we're always in the most incredible real estate podcast when I see your background.
Yeah.
It's lit perfectly. Yeah, man.
What can
This
I
I
is
tell
this
you?
is this is from Studio A in Pensacola, Florida.
yeah. I'm just waiting for Albert to come up behind you. Master Wayne.
you're up in Pensacola. I gotta go visit you when I go visit my friends up there. Pensacola is mind blowing. It's
Mm.
incredible.
Hey, anytime you guys are out, I'm telling you, anyone who does here that doesn't know me, I am a diehard foodie. If you come into Pensacola, call me. I'm taking you to dinner, and I will show. Like, we have a very good food scene for being such a small town.
My theory behind your food scene is this: the closer you get to New Orleans, the better the food gets.
You know what?
Uh,
Jason, I'll challenge you. Come out to Tucson. We're the first city of gastronomy in the United States. City of food.
Well, I'll tell you, about 2 years ago, I gave a presentation in a couple of the offices, the Remax offices out there, and we purposely planned that during restaurant week. So I was literally there for
Oh,
5 days, and every night we went to the restaurants that were featured, but we didn't order anything off the featured menu. We ordered off the regular menu, everything we could think of. It was amazing.
oh, good. I'll take
Bob is
you.
here.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Good
Rob.
morning.
Good morning.
How's it going? An exciting week for lenders. Any lenders on the call?
Yes, Frank is right here.
All right, Frank, give us an update.
So, well, it was an exciting week as anticipated. Feds did cut the rates. They cut them a quarter point. They also had mentioned that they're looking at rate cuts, probably a quarter in the October and December meetings. They were a little skittish on the 2% inflation rate, but listen, rates came down. We've known this for the last couple of weeks that they were going to cut, so rates have been on a downward trend. The average Freddie Mac national average is about 6.375. So rates are in that low to mid sixes right now for government loans. They are in the fives. So it's a real exciting time right now for the market. Every lender is getting a lot of calls about just what the feds have done, what they're doing. And everybody is, looking to either to refinance or getting a lot of pre-approvals. So it's a great time. Remember, more buyers, more competition, but with the rates coming down, there's just a lot of positivity in the market, and I think that's what we needed. So, yeah, just go out there and sell some rates. We're offering for refinances. We have a special program. We're taking off about 100 basis points off of pricing. So rates are in the low sixes for refinancing. So we have some aggressive refinancing prices. A lot of people are looking to pull cash out, pay off some debt. So yeah, just let's.
I think we lost Frank.
Yeah, it's so exciting. We lost him.
That's
That's
what I
right.
find
Sorry
a
about
cliffhanger.
that, but yeah, I got disconnected. But yep.
Eh, And uh,
So
did rates track back up a little bit after the initial bump or no?
they did a little bit, Rob. Over the last day and a half, the market, like I said, they were a little what they listen to what Jerome Powell says, not necessarily what he does. They listen to what he thinks about the market. So we did lose a little bit in pricing over the last 2 days since the Fed cut the rates. But listen, we're still in a great range of rates being in the low to mid sixes on a 30-year fixed. 15-year fixed is probably somewhere in the mid fives. So rates are still attractive.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Let me just see here. I don't know how I have the setup here. Speaker view. All right. Can you guys see me or are you still seeing Frank?
Still see you.
You see me. Okay, good. Um, I'm excited about the market, maybe getting some new life. But I also don't want anybody to think that interest rates, if they take a step backwards or they don't go down as much as we expect, that should have any impact at all on our income. I mean, to me, it's crazy if our income's dependent upon, what the market does. So, with that said, my session today is if we knew exactly what to do and exactly what to say in our day, which means we have a scheduled day, our income would be a lot more predictable and you'll have a lot more fun doing it. Does anybody have a routine or a schedule that's probably a 7 or above where 70% of your time is blocked out? Anybody do that?
Rob, I'm working on it. Ezekiel from Fort Lee. I'm actually
Okay.
working on that. Really, I've never been a structured person. I've done pretty good, but I've never been structured. So now, with my coach from Mike Ferry, we're really working on tightening up a schedule. Blocking time for prospecting and other things. So I think it's really important. It's kind of like a change for me because I've always been kind of like freewheeling, type of guy, but I'm really trying to structure a schedule, and it's super important. I've realized.
So, and you prefer Zeke or Ezekiel?
Ezekiel.
Ezekiel. So, hiring a coach should help your business from porpoising, right? And you know what that is in this business, right? You go through the ups and the downs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think structuring your time is going to be important. And I'm going to, if you want this, I'm going to put a link to a accountability sheet, which shows you where you're spending your time. And I'm going to do it the next 7 days. I'm going to just keep track of what am I like 1 hour doing the mastermind. How much time does it take to prep? What am I doing for other things? So I have an awareness of where I'm spending my time. Because I think it's possible that many of us think we're spending a lot more time doing income producing activities. And a lot of times we may not want to see what the real result is, but actually looking at what you're doing will force us to be more transparent to ourselves with what we're doing, if that makes any sense. And you might say, Zeke, how can you not be transparent to yourself? But you might think you're doing more of something and you're not. Is that possible?
Absolutely.
Does your coach help you kind of self-realize that,
Absolutely.
self-actualize?
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
what are one or two things that coaching is at least encourage you to do, or you're doing it already?
Well, organizing my contact list in my phone. I have from the 20 years I've been doing real estate, I have about 5,000 numbers and contacts in there. And the thing that we're doing is we're trying to, cut out the unnecessary numbers that I don't need or I'll never use. Organizing them in a form of the way they do it is A, B, and C clients. A being the number ones, and then The other ones being, you know, people that you don't know very well, and you know, whatever. He's also telling me the important people put a VIP next to their name, because those are the ones that are always gonna give you business, and you want to make sure you find them in your phone. So it's really, you know, organizing my database, and getting rid of a lot of, you know, people in my
Distractions.
yeah.
Distractions.
Correct, correct. And also the you know, the schedule is very important for me to really organize my schedule. And I have a, how can I say, a rough draft of it, okay, that I've been using, and I have to tweak it here and there. I don't always follow it, unfortunately. But that's part of coaching. That's part of them keeping me accountable, and making sure that I follow my schedule, and make a schedule that I could actually follow, you know. It's tough.
Yep. Well, anything with growth is requires change, which we all say is tough, right? Because we're creatures of habit.
Correct.
Um, and you know, congratulations on hiring a coach.
Thank you.
You've been doing this for how many years? You've been doing this, Ezekiel?
20.
20 years, and you're still hiring a coach. So my hat goes off to you. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about here. I'm going to just share my screen for a moment, and knowing exactly what to say and exactly what to do. I think, you know, knowing exactly what to do is kind of like my memory of watching Elon Musk say, I wear a black shirt every day so I don't have to think about it. I save 3 minutes every day not having to think about what am I going to wear, and then I repurpose that time. And if you want to talk about knowing exactly what to do, those are the type of things I think that really have an impact. You know, Joe Garcia is probably not on this call because he's prospecting, but he knows exactly what he's going to do from probably 8:30 till 11. I don't know. I think I saw Marilyn. Are you on? Marilyn Scafidi? All right. If she is,
Yes,
she
I'm here.
probably
Can you hear me, Bob?
is he staying with his routine?
Yes, he does. Yes, he
Uh,
does. He makes his calls every morning. I think he starts 8:30 to 11. And he's all over New Jersey now. He's going to every area.
And probably only a few years in the business, and I think he's top 25 in our New Jersey team. So
I think he's
congrats.
3 years in the business. I think he only has 3 years. Yeah.
Right. So he's definitely on his way to platinum, maybe even chairman's club. Um, and there's probably no better example of knowing what you're going to do, right?
Yes.
Than Joe. Um, and he's learning what to say, getting better at what to say. I think a lot of us don't. We have hesitancy in doing activities because we're uncertain about how we're going to handle things. I'll repeat that. I think a lot of us don't do some activities we know we should do because we're not confident in how to address whatever conflict or whatever objection may come up. All right. Um, that for us is an opportunity. That's job security. That's an ability for us to separate ourselves from the rest of the competition. Is there anybody that has a question that you dread getting, either when you're prospecting or um, when you're meeting with a client? Now, it's not possible we could have a shy group of real estate professionals, is it, Wilson? That's not possible.
No,
Oh, we just
So,
know.
not us.
so what's something that you know that you don't like to address?
Well, the simplest one I think is, how do you think the market is right now? Because like you said, you got to make the market work, and you still have to do what you have to do, but you might just paint yourself into a corner depending on what you say.
And that's just a casual conversation.
Casual conversations or sitting down with a client for the first time.
I mean,
It's been my experience that they always ask, well, what do you think the market is like right now?
it's incredible. You have more opportunities now, Miguel, than you've had in years. You know, and if you're a seller, you know, hey, rates are coming down. Here's something that, you know, and I'm incredibly logical to a fault. And I'm very mathematically inclined for those of you who know. But there's a psychology that's in the market that bears no resemblance to reality. Okay. Um, if you're a homeowner and you're not moving now and you have no mortgage, it makes no sense to me. If you're a homeowner and you don't have a mortgage and you want to move, like the main reason that the market's a little bit stuck is because people are hanging on to their rates. But there are a lot of people that are just in this psychological mode that, oh, it's not a great time right now, right? Because nobody's taken the time to educate them. And it might be Ezekiel. This might be a Mike Ferry quote in my head, but it's a very famous way of just saying, "Hey, if it doesn't work out, you just go next," right? You don't
Mhm.
wait and dwell on it, right? If you have these conversations and it's not the right time for Ezekiel to transact, next is a powerful word,
Mhm.
right? Because at least I've learned that he's not a
Mhm.
prospect in my database for today. Okay, so
Well,
we
you
can
can't get attached. You can't get attached to a no. Say, you just got to keep going, and there's gonna be a ton of no's to go through before you get that yes. So that's something really, it is what it is. You gotta plow through it and say, hey, he said no, it's fine. There's no problem with that.
Right, but now at least you know where you stand with that particular client or contact in your database.
Correct. And if you don't contact them, you're never gonna know anyway. So that's kind of a big thing now. All these people that I've been reconnecting, a lot of them are glad I called. Oh, I haven't heard from you in a long time. And they do have business. And if I don't call, they're gonna call somebody else because, uh, you're not going to be remembered. I mean, you'll be remembered, but there's so many other agents. An aunt became a realtor, and a niece became a realtor. So, you know, if you don't keep that contact, they'll forget about you.
Yep, and I think we pigeonhole our own framing into what we believe customers like or don't like. Not talking to your clients is not a great idea. When a lot of time goes by, we feel like we're awkwardly distance ourselves. We've abandoned them, right? Um, okay, Ivy put out a good question. I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. um, but we awkwardly avoid them because, oh, it's been a year. I should have called them, you know, 3 months ago and 9 months ago. Now I can't call because I haven't called for so long. Well, that's a demon in your head, and I don't think it's the reality to what a conversation should look like. I think if you're calling them up and just saying, "Hey, do you want to sell your house?" without having a relationship, that's a big mistake. Um, you know,
Well, sorry to interrupt you, Rob, but my coach actually has a really good script for that. And when you haven't spoken to somebody in a long time, you say hello and you say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I haven't reached out sooner. And I just wanted to see how you're doing. And that kind of breaks the ice of, why you haven't spoken to them in a long time. You apologize to them.
okay. So I'm going to give you an alternative to that, and I would just say, hey, Ezekiel, I was showing some homes in your neighborhood. I was just thinking about you and your family. How you been?
Yeah.
Because I'm not. I understand the emotion of saying I'm sorry, but you can have the same impact without having to kind of apologize. But
Hmm.
don't tell your coach that I criticize him, but I would just say, hey, I was in the neighborhood, I was just thinking about you. Or if you weren't in the neighborhood and you don't want to do that, you can say, hey, I was just thinking about you and I want to see how you're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, is a plan B to that same conversation. Now I know I think Nicole had a question, and then I saw one from Ivy. Nicole?
Well, you'd ask like I was trying to think of something that came up where I was like a question that I not that I was uncomfortable answering, but I was walking through a listing, they're wanting to list beginning of the year, and they asked about renovations. Like, should we update this? Should we update that? And you know, obviously this is totally market specific, but it's a slippery slope, right? Because it's like, well, once you update one thing, then you kind of have to update everything because then that's new. And then this is, and you want like, you know, cohesiveness. And then I think whenever I get into like, you know, like interior design or whatever, I mean, I'm looking at the property as it is and giving you value from the market now. Now you're talking about market we don't know, right? You never know. So we can try to divulge what's going to happen, but it's still 3 months out. Springs, you know, tends to be better. But like speaking to that is always kind of like, I don't know. Like, okay, well, if you do the bathroom, you should do the kitchen. And they're like, well, what about the windows? And it's just a, you know, a slippery slope where all of a sudden we're kind of getting in the weeds, I guess. So that's an example of a question that I'm like hesitant
So,
to get
so,
into.
so if Tony Resigliano's here, big shout out to her. We were having this conversation about how much work should we do on a house that was abandoned, and we kind of used ChatGPT, a little bit of research. We looked at it as an opportunity to separate ourselves from the competition. And I think it turned out that based upon our extensive research supported by chat, so it wasn't all ChatGPT, but you know, chat was very eloquent in um, describing why it was probably better for them to put it on the market the way it was. And you know, we had fun with it. Tony, you're not on, are you?
Yes, I'm here.
Are we under contract?
Yes, we should be closing next week, actually.
All right, so that worked out, right? That was a problem, right?
And the depreciation and all of that from chat GBT. What is GPT?
Yeah.
It worked out very well because it gave me an opportunity to act like I knew what I was talking about to my sellers, so they agreed. So it worked well.
Well, but you do know what you're talking about, and we just had a unique circumstance that we needed to get you more confident on. And by the
Right.
way, by the way, like, and I'm sorry to call on you. I just I'm proud of what you know. I think you called me on a Saturday, and we got on a screen share for 40 minutes and banged it out.
We did.
And then you know I texted her like 4 days later. Did we get it? She's like, yeah, that made my day. You know, it wasn't my listing, but it literally made my day because I know I had an impact and you helped somebody. So
Wonderful.
those
Thank you.
no, thank you. So those challenging questions help us all, you know, grow in what we're doing, right? And you know, when somebody asks you, you know, do I do the kitchen and the bathroom, Nicole? That's you know, you just do the research and you're a resource for them. And if you were desperate for a listing and you were being, you know, remotely leading them in a direction that was to your self-interest, a lot of times people sense that, right? And if you always tell the truth, you do the right thing, there's just so much business out there, right? Oh, I'm going to try to
Also, like
convince
you've
you.
got insurance items in Florida that are like that's gonna determine if the buyer and open up our buyer pool, right? Because if we have financing to qualify for our insurance.
Nicole, I don't know if you have somebody in the office because I hear like a bad background noise when you're talking. Oh, you got to unmute yourself. I just muted everybody else. Yeah, you're still muted.
So if you have like, you know, insurance items, those I said, you know, those are obviously the first things I want to look at. Like what is, I got the ages of everything, and you can take pictures now and they can tell you the age of something if you don't know. But then, you know, it's just it's something that I mean, maybe there's agents here that are really, you know, confident when it comes to, you know, seeing like an interior, like what, you know, kitchens and bathrooms, right? Kitchen and bathrooms sell houses. That's just a fact. We know that. But where they want to put their money and also timeline, like then all of a sudden now we're waiting for renovation. So you know, there's never a right answer with it. And I guess the question was like, where do you get apprehension? Sometimes that for me, that was like, you know, okay, so that's going to push this out a little bit if we do something. And I would rather, this is what I would do. I just list it as is, you know what I mean? And factor in our comps with the condition that it's in, unless there's something that's like insurance required.
But
for me.
having the question and the challenge just enables you to differentiate yourself because you're confident on how you're going to answer those questions. That's the magical part of it. And I want to get to, I think Ivy had a question and then Bobby Golden. Wow, this is a hot topic. Let me get to Ivy first. The dreaded question for your agents is what do you charge? Discount and charging much less. So are you saying if they ask about Ivy about other another brokerage is going to you hate when that gets put forth to us? Is that the question? I think you're still on mute. You have to hit the unmute button on the bottom left there, Ivy. Sorry. All right.
Okay, I got it. Sorry, written on mute. Now, in our area, there's a lot of discount brokers and there are agents, these part-time agents who are out there and doing things for 1%. So I think the dreaded question for us is, discount brokers are, doing it for so much less. Why can't you? And, the way we certainly address that is to show them our value. The difference in value is tremendous.
Right. So I have a more tangible way too, Ivy, that we can differentiate ourselves, and you can do it with integrity, and you can choose a few different data sets. But like if you are a full-time successful agent, you can go in and look at your stats and say, hey, in the last 6 months or the last 2 years, whichever bodes better for you, I've sold my listings for, 99.8% of ask price. If we look in the general community, the listings are selling for 97.1. So basically, if you hire me, you're getting professional service and you're only net paying 0.7%. Like that's again, I'm super numerically disposed, or that's my disposition. But you know that your agents, Ivy, are providing more value than the rest of the competition. It's just a matter of how can you demonstrate that. Okay. I will go back to did you catch all that, Ivy, or no?
Yeah, no, I caught it. I could hear you. I just had
Okay.
the
No
yard
worries.
making too much noise. Yeah.
Okay.
Rob,
Yeah.
you also have Bobby Golden and Kenya who have their hands up.
Yep. I'm coming to I think Bobby was first and then you Kenya, Mr. Golden.
Rob, thanks. I have to leave early, so I had one thing I wanted to bring up at this meeting, gave me two others, which I'll share with the group. So instead of apologizing when you don't speak to somebody in a while, this is just my personality, but I'll use Ezekiel because that was part of his conversation. I would call him up and say, hey, Ezekiel, how you doing? It's Bobby Golden. Listen, I owe you a phone call. And then I go into the reason for my call. So I don't really formally apologize, but I acknowledge the fact that I owe him a phone call. And when I do that, that diffuses the situation almost 100% of the time. Never causes me a problem. So it's how I deliver the message.
So now you have options, Ezekiel, from your colleagues. Go ahead.
So the other thing that this is the early part of the meeting of what to say and when to say it. It made me think of something else that I saw or heard in a seminar. And it applies to real estate, business, life. But what you know and what you do are two different things. So if you want to lose weight, but you don't exercise and diet, you're not going to lose weight. If you want more business and you don't canvas, you're not going to get more business. So I'm not this keeps me in line a lot, but not 100%. I'm human, but when I heard that, I said, boy, that makes a lot of sense. What we know and what we do are two different things. So just sharing that with the group. The main reason that I wanted to jump on the call is I have to raise a glass to Glenn Baker. I don't know if he's on the call or not, but I'm working with a customer for over a year, very qualified customer. We're making great offers, still getting beat out. I don't mean to make this any longer than it is, but I presented an offer during the week and I made a video for the first time ever. So 37 years in the business, sold hundreds of homes, and the first time ever I attached a video to an offer and I made the deal. So I'm going to give credit to the buyer because it was a blockbuster offer, but the fact that I made, and it was just a low quality, you know, video, but I made it. I made my deal. And like I said, I'm raising a glass to Chief Baker today. So thank you for listening, everybody. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. You can, yeah.
Hi. No, I was just going to go back to the question. I'm not sure who posed it, just talking about in terms of what to counsel our clients. I think what I try to do and what I train and coach my agents is we are in a consultative role. So what we are doing is really providing options. I love a 3 option kind of thing. Here's what the market is saying. If you do nothing, this is what your return is. If you're a maximizer and you do these things, then this might be your potential return. And then there's always that middle option, which in my business, I consult to the middle, right? You know, most sellers do some type of work to their homes to prepare their homes for sale. Here's what the average is. I like numbers too, like Rob. And you know, and this is what you're looking to maximize. And even in a down market,
On a call.
sometimes
About 10 minutes.
sometimes the value is in that if you don't do these things, you may sit longer than your competition. So giving them that kind of advice and giving them some element of choice, but not too much, really helps to steer the conversation, and it lets them sort of drive it. And I would say most of my listings, me personally, take about 2 months to come on the market, but they all sell for over asking, even in down markets, or at least 98, 99% of asking, because of that preparation phase. So that was just some advice I wanted to share that seems to work.
I appreciate that.
Hey, Rob?
Anybody else? Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, can I just say something going back to the conversation about if you haven't spoken to your client in a long time? I had a client who was a professional musician, and he was very well known and very active. So I never wanted to interrupt him. I never reached out to him, um, except maybe with a holiday card each year. And then one day I was interviewing an agent at a restaurant right around the corner from his house that I had sold him, and I just drove over to his house and rang the bell, and he opened the door, and we just kind of looked at each other, and then he just threw his arms around me and said, "I can't believe that you're here. Perfect timing, because my wife and I were just talking about we're going to be moving to California and we're going to need to sell the house. So if you're concerned about not having reached out to somebody for quite a while and you happen to find yourself in the area, I think there's nothing better than being face to face and letting them know that, they were important enough for me to come see you in person."
Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to brag on somebody here, and I might embarrass them, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I didn't set this up in advance, but when somebody asks the question, uh, XYZ company is willing to do it at 1% listing fee, if you were this gentleman here, Gary Nagurka, and you can go to your client and say, look, that's one option. My clients have found that if they list it right, they stage the property, we launch it correctly, I'm getting 7.1% higher than my peer group, netting my sellers over $40,000 more. Are you most concerned about paying the least or getting the highest return on the sale of your property? And most of us don't even know what our numbers are. And I don't know. I hope you're using that, but and I don't know. I think I saw you were on. I don't know if you want to chime in, but that's quite impressive.
Uh, yeah, you know what? When I go to visit clients, I basically will just, try to earn my trust with them and explain to them that the market that we're in, that if you price it correctly, you can, the objective is to get as many showings as possible. And, on the listings that I've had, I mean, the one I literally had like 140 showings in 5 days, and I had like 30 offers, and you know, it was a house that where the owner passed away and the brother was living in Virginia. And, he was like, every time I come up here, I got to fly up here and I got to get a hotel. Um, and it was very inconvenient for him. And I was able to get like, that many showings and multiple offers and even help out with 2 open permits that he didn't even know that were open. And I got them closed for him. So he was very happy. And so if you go the extra mile, and you explain to them, they'll understand.
Okay. Well,
And
I
if
don't,
I can just add to Gary, how many Zillow reviews have you gotten?
I have over 300, and this was and I got this referral from an agent whose husband is an estate attorney, and all she does is give referrals from her husband, and her license is with Latimer Realtor, and she recommended to use, of course, Jeff Latimer because he's in the office, and they wanted a person in Montville, and they found me in Hello, and they asked me if I would be interested, and I said, of course. Called the guy right away, and I said, well, how am I gonna, how can I get into the house if you're in Virginia? He says, well, I'll just mail you the key. And he like earned my trust right away, and he mailed me the key, and he gave me like this unbelievable review on Zillow that really really helps me out.
so, and Gary, I can say that, it's impressive, and I'm going to send you that screenshot, and I want you to use it when you get your client, when you work with um, listings, and say, look, I get 7.1% more. I only charge three, and whatever you charge, it's a bargain, right? So,
Right, and this
but
is
but you
what I
you've
have.
earned you've earned that right, though. You know what I mean? Like, you've earned that. You have that history. 11 listings, $40,000 premium. You have magic to appear upside down on my Zoom.
Yeah. But
Um,
like a booklet of my listings and what they listed for and what they sold for. So when I go on my listing presentation, I'll show them, hey, look what I've done to my clients in the past year, and look what their list price was, and look what their sold price was. And also, and it's right there. It's right there in black and white. So I have a separate, booklet of all my listings, really since COVID, and almost every one of my listings have gotten multiple offers and have sold for over list price. And I said, and if you follow my instructions, that I said, this can happen to you too.
very, very good. Uh, very, very humble man who gets outstanding results. Um, so I just want to go through, because we have a really great participation level today, because I think it's a very emotional topic. But here's a few things that I just wanted to put in your head for mindset. Um, Psychology of achievement. Your beliefs shape your reality. If you believe you're capable, you'll act accordingly, and vice versa. And I think the vice versa is the more dangerous part. Is if you're tentative um, in your confidence, then you're going to be harder to come across as credible. Replace limiting beliefs with powerful ones, and use affirmations and visualizations to rewire your subconscious. Um, you know, you really do have like a subconscious mind that kind of anchors you to what your true beliefs are. No matter how much you tell you, if you don't program yourself, and Gary, you probably um, support your experience with the fact that you have outcomes that demonstrate that you're worth more than you charge, correct? It looks like you're on mute. But I'm supposing that that's part of the game and part of the success that Gary has.
Could you just repeat that? I lost my connection for a second.
So I said the results that you've experienced for your clients, where you've delivered on them significantly more than what the ask price was, that helps you appear more confident when you meet with a new client, not arrogant. Would that be accurate?
I never try to be arrogant. I just try to show them and try to be honest with them. Not, I'm pretty, straightforward and, let them know, but I'm not an arrogant person. I just, show them what I can do and that, the results that I give my clients are right in my reviews. So it's not me saying it, it's my clients saying it. Um,
And,
and they're writing this, not me.
and I talk about sometimes, Gary, that if I were in sales sitting across from a homeowner, the homeowner might be looking at me trying to convince me to overprice the listing from a false belief. Or number two, they might be looking at me, what's your average, let's say Gary's average sales price is 800,000 and his commission is 3% on average. They might be looking at me and say, you're looking at me as a $24,000 payday, right? And if I feel like I'm just in the game to make 24,000, I will behave one way. If I behave like Gary, where I'm like, yes, I charge a reasonable fee, but my clients go out of the way to give me 5-star reviews, and I'm humbly honored when my clients refer their friends, family members, and neighbors to me. So I've done a couple of things there. One is I've stated a truth, and me personally, I don't know if I had abundant business and somebody says, "Hey, I'm never going to refer you a deal, but I'll pay you 3% on this," I might think twice about it. I might say, "Look, my business model is I exceed expectations and I get referrals because people want to refer me." And I might not say that, but they're going to feel that. And I think people feel that with you, Gary, as well. And that helps you be more confident in the way that you present. Um, and that may not make sense to some of you, but the way you feel comes across in your conversation. Okay. Um, the achievement framework, goal clarity, and strategic planning. So after you've done the homework, you believe in yourself, you have the confidence, not the arrogance. You now need to have clear strategic planning, set measurable goals, hold yourself accountable, break them into generally time blocks, right? That begs for time mastery. Do your tasks align with your goals? Um, I know that Ezekiel said that he has A, B, C clients. You may want to have A, B, C, D, and E tasks. And I was speaking with somebody earlier today saying, look at anything C, D, or E. As we grow in the business, we're looking to defer those items out to somebody else who can handle them because that's not the highest and best use of our time. In real estate, that limits our ability to help more buyers and sellers in the business. Okay. Um, uh, Measuring what you're doing helps us overcome procrastination, right? The old analogy of eat the frog first, which I'm sure nobody likes to eat frogs, but you do the toughest thing first, then the rest of your day it's all gravy. You've done the high impact events, the high return events. Um, Confidence building, visualization, affirmations. Um, has anybody had a really difficult transaction that you turned around recently? Wilson, what happened and how'd you fix it?
Oh man, it was actually a referral from a Remax agent for an $80,000 co-op. It was the worst transaction of my career,
Was
and
that that wasn't Joe Mayo, was it?
that was Joe Mayo.
All right, good. Tell us about how you turned that around.
Yeah, so I was working with a seller who was unrepresented and a former real estate agent who knew everything in the business and realized that my multiple years in management experience didn't mean anything. Um, and it was just constant communication and constant reassurance and me sticking to my guns in a lot of ways of this is how a transaction occurs. This is what the contract says. This is what we're going to follow. This is how we do business here in Arizona. And I don't care what your experience tells you, but this is how we're going to do it. And fighting for my client every single day through the minimum of 21 phone calls a day. I averaged it out from a very panicked seller where we closed in 14 days. And it's
So,
just constant communication.
so I believe that that referral source, I don't know how work the Remax network, but they called up to Tyler and wanted to talk to the owner, and they actually sent me a message, which was a compliment. Tyler might have been mortified it was going to be, a complaint. Hey, who's the owner? I want to send them a message. Uh-oh. It was Wilson did an outstanding job. My niece closed, very professional. He knows his shit. I guess that's a quote. Tell him my brother and daughter-in-law are delighted. That was the agent that referred the deal to you, going out of their way to reach out to me and say you did a great job. So congrats. But see, there was trouble behind it, and hopefully you'll get more referrals from that source. Um, and I think you're more confident now. You may not know it, but because you've
Oh,
overcome
I
some
am.
things, your confidence grows, and you're a better agent after every transaction. Um,
Well, and I took the referral too, and the way that they did it with it, I wasn't going to bring up the review, but they did send me a great review, and there's a line in there that for anybody that knows me, I'm your, whatever you want to call it, redneck, cowboy, whatever it is. I am who I am. I don't wear button-ups. I don't wear suits. I wear my boots, jeans, and a t-shirt to every listing. I don't care the price. And I'm very rough, very out there. And when you say Wilson knows his shit, I have two t-shirts on the way with it that says Wilson knows his shit, and you could bet I will be wearing those to my open houses.
okay, and Wilson is very authentic, as you can tell.
Yeah, that's the way we'll do it.
I
So,
will tell you guys, I speak to Wilson probably once a week. He makes a huge effort to network with Florida and with me, and we mastermind back and forth together. Sometimes after this call, and we have a great leader in Wilson. If anybody thinks of Tucson, please think of Wilson.
Thanks, David.
You got it, bud.
so, and yeah, Dave, thanks for your contribution. Um, in our journey for success, we need to expect setbacks. Um, and challenges. And sometimes those setbacks are, we do something that we probably shouldn't have done and we have a listing that expires. We made a mistake, we have a setback. The setbacks might be setbacks that you turn around during the transaction, as Wilson did. But persistence is the differentiator between success and failure, right? Persistence is what differentiates the winners from the losers. And persistence with confidence is what gives us the ability to earn more business. Okay. Um, Miguel Mejia, if I'm talking to you about selling your house, I'm not going to be arrogant, but I know I can get the job done. I know I need to find a way to speak truth and get you to take the right action. And the Bill Jones Exactly What to Say book and his series, you can watch him on YouTube. He's basically made a career out of mastering, how to take our knowledge and present it linguistically so that people will know that we're the right choice for them. Because one of the most frustrating things is to be the right solution to a challenge and to have trouble getting the sale at the fair price. And the fair price could be, getting them to position it right when they introduce it to the market, or getting paid what we're worth. To Ivy's point, somebody says, "Hey, there's a discount broker in my neighborhood. Will you match their price?" Right? Um, you know, if you want to be a little risky, you can say, "I know who will match their price, the discounter, but this is what you get for it," right? Because the the services are not the same, and we need to be confident about that. And there's a way to go about it, and then there's a way where you could be, arguing with your client before they're your client, and even if you win, you've already started out on a little bit of a rocky path. Um, just click back. I'm gonna on the email that you all received, I'm gonna go put my daily time tracker from my coach, Wayne Einhorn. If you want to download it and keep track of your days, I just wanted to put that out there before I forget. Um, let's see. This is a Mike Ferry borrow that I took. He was quoting in one of his older sessions that he did, a person by the name of Tracy Stein, who posted skills that will pay you forever. And I just loved that topic so much that I had a chat GBT it and put it down and share it with the entire group. Um, Skills that will pay you forever is your ability to sell and negotiate. Core to real estate success, agents must embrace their role as a salesperson and master contract negotiator. Okay? We must have impact in the way that we present, right? Because if we're a master negotiator, a master marketer, but we can't present, we can't demonstrate our value, we're going to be challenged with the discount question, or the obvious choice is not going to be us. Breaking down the process. I'm just trying to think of who the gentleman that I watched who literally broke it down in a timeline, and he breaks down the buying and the selling process, every single client the same way all the time. Um, I don't know how many of us break the process down for both of those flows, from listing your home or being a buyer, but I think that will give us opportunities to identify where we add value to the transaction that is invisible to the customer. Um, Listen and learn. Okay. Silence is powerful. Listening builds trust and reveals clear client motivations. Um, you have two ears and one mouth. You're designed to listen more than we speak. Um, I'm not saying that you abuse awkward silence, but there is a place for awkward silence in a transaction. Let me just go back here for one quick sec. Um, Adapt and overcome. There's likely you're going to be maybe the same or maybe slightly more transactions next year. So don't expect the market to dole out 30% more transactions next year, which means that we need to be able to um, improve both our outcome, our market share, our communication skills, um, and solving problems is part of value, adding value. Overcoming objections. Like, I almost feel if, you know, on the occasion I'm invited to go out on a listing appointment or help you prepare, if there's no objections, I'm kind of a little bit disappointed. I don't create them and say, oh, I want to go over these things, but I like it when there's intelligent questions, objections that we need to overcome to make our value more apparent in the process. And I know you probably may not believe this, but I like to get objections and I like to figure out ways to overcome them. And I don't just wing it. Very intentional. Um, whether it's the commission rate, whether it's the price, um, whether it's my office isn't close enough to your, like, whatever it is, I'm prepared for objections, and I'm not like, oh shucks, they asked me that question. I'm like, I've got this, right? I know exactly how I'm going to address it. It's not fluff, and it's going to help me have a better both batting average and outcome for my opportunities. Okay. Sometimes agents make the calculation that I will go and tell them that their home is worth X just to buy the listing and then I'll work it down. That doesn't work. I mean, it works. Many of us get the listings, but it's not the smart strategy. Okay. And in my opinion, it somewhat lacks integrity in the business by not pressing them and making sure that they're brutally aware of what might happen by overpricing their home, right? And I can see a lot of you are processing this. You know, Brian in Scottsdale, do you ever take an overpriced listing on purpose?
I try to avoid that at all costs. I try to be a little bit more realistic in numbers when we're going through all of the data. I'm very data driven. So I try, occasionally it will happen, but it's pretty rare and I hate to do it. Because if you even talk that strategy, hey, you know what, we could try to push the market and put it here, and then if it doesn't work, coming out, our introductory price, then we can kind of drop the price. They always forget in that initial conversation that then we will drop the price, and then they want to stay and they want to stay and they want to stay, and so I try to avoid overpriced at all costs. I've learned a couple valuable lessons and haven't done that in over 10 years.
Well, advice for those of us who might be prone to doing that, that probably a really bad idea, right? And you might have even had the time when you're getting that call from that person. Oh, I hate that. That seller's calling me again, right?
Yeah.
And I will tell you, this is what I found to be universal. You can tell them, Brian, that, hey, the market's at 800. If you want to list it at 850, 875, 900, then we need to understand that we're likely going to have to reduce the price. You might even be, 3 to 4 years in the business to get a pre-executed price reduction for 2 weeks down the road. But they have amnesia. They forget it. They're like, Brian, what's happening to the 900? I didn't really think we'd have to use that price reduction for him. I'm very disappointed in you. I mean, that's either possible or probable. Would you agree?
Very probable, high statistics that they're just not going to drop the price.
Or they're not going to be happy with it, right? And
Yeah,
you might, you might,
and then there's a little that adversarial thing going on with you and the seller, and it's kind
yeah,
of limiting your rapport a little bit.
and certainly limiting your ability to get rave reviews, right?
Absolutely.
And then when you go for your next listing and they say, "Hey, how come this one sold for 70,000 less?" Kind of, chops into your value prop.
One of the other pieces of that in the conversations that I'm having on that listing appointment, and there's that pressure of wanting to say, hey, it's worth 800. We want to list it at 850, 875. We'll just see what happens. I get very adamant about, I don't want to do that, and here's why I don't want to do it, and it has nothing to do with you. But if my sign on an overpriced listing, my sign's going to be sitting in your yard for a very, very long time because we're not going to be able to sell your house because it's honestly going to be overpriced. I don't need a signpost sitting in a yard for 9 months or a year. Because then everybody that ever drives by this house and says, man, that Brian guy, he sucks. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can't sell a house. So I have part of that conversation with them to understand that, hey, there's a lot of ramifications that happen when you overprice a listing.
And Brian, I'm going to give you a alternate way of looking at that, which is my DNA is like, look, Brian, would it be okay if at the end, if we decide not to work, like this is how I would do it. Hopefully, it wouldn't be offensive if we decide that I'm not the right agent for you, and if I felt that the strategy was not going to yield you and your family the maximum for your house, you know, I, I really just can't do it, right? Instead of the sign being there, right, I'm going to turn it to how it impacts them. And I think that it impacts them negatively. And that might be another way of saying it where, hey, Brian, and I know you were referred by Claire, who had a great experience with me. I know that you want to try this. I will use some of my uh, communication tactics to try to get them to understand by asking them questions that drive them that way. And then at the end, I might say, hey, it, it's okay if I don't think I can get you the most value, I'm going to pass on it. Like, how many people have passed on $800,000 listings? Probably very few. You have, okay. But very few of us, are willing to pass on those listings. But unless you're willing to pass, they're going to think that you buy into, they're going to leave and they're going to high five themselves saying, hey, we convinced Brian that our house is worth 100,000 more than it is, thinking that you're going to work harder and that they won, but they really didn't win. They lost. And I think the reason they lost is because we didn't communicate it properly to them, in my opinion. Now, I know, Nasir, you have a question, and we're already at noon. I'll go a couple minutes over. But Brian, thank you for sharing that. And I know you were authentic and walking away from bad business. Congrats,
Yeah,
Nasir.
and thank you, Rob, because this is one of the reasons I love being on this call every week is that, you get insights from other people and a different thought process, a different way to do business, because we're always learning, things are always changing, and we don't all know it all. So thank you for your input, and I appreciate the advice.
Yeah, and Brian, one last thing I want to pile onto that is that, the consumers are different than they were, when you and I started in the business. And if we keep using the same playbook, it may not work. So kudos to you for being successful and still showing up. Nasir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a quick question. So, as a new real estate agent going after expired listings, handling the objection of what makes you different from the previous agent, like how should I handle that?
So if I was going on expired,
I think we lost you, Rob.
oh,
Think
hold on.
so.
Nasir, how long have you been doing the business? When did you start?
Since April.
Since April. So here's what I would personally do is I would find the best person in my office and I would partner with them and I'd say, I'll give you half the loaf if you come here and you help me do it. Many of our top agents will work for half a loaf, especially if they're helping somebody in the office. And then you'll see how somebody with 5, 10, 20 years experience gets it done. And your client will be better served if I was new in the business. That would be my personal suggestion to you, right? You'll look under the hood how a 5, 20 million, $30 million producer has been so successful.
One thing, Rob, that I always like going back to is I believe it was Todd Gatchell that said it, where he walked in and for the first year he said, I'm a new agent, but we're going to learn together. And he was able to get those listings and work his way through the concept of I am a new agent, but I'm motivated, I'm excited, and I will do everything that I know, and I'm surrounded by the right people to sell your house.
Right. But Todd's also on an extremely successful team. And my advice to you is Nasir, like you might lose 1 out of 3. You get 1 out of 3 um, misaligned with expectations or pricing, and then you're going to pay a severe price for doing that. And if you were to bring somebody else into the process, like if you had your manager, me, somebody in the company go out there and help you, you're going to almost like guarantee your paycheck, okay? And you're going to be able to see how a experienced, high-performing person does everything along the way. And this is a shout out to Julie Vanderblue, $300 million producer in Connecticut. She was telling me at one of our meetings that she was hiring some new people. She put her heart and soul into it. She's a real giver. As a matter of fact, her favorite book was The Go Giver. And she's like, what happens is people go home, they talk to their friend, and they say, "Oh, I'm on a 40-60 split. I get paid 40% on my first 3 deals." And they're like, "Oh, if you go to XYZ discount company, you can make 90%." And, a couple of people left. And she said, "You know what? Now I realize that I explained to them, if you want to work with a $300 million producer in Connecticut, I'm going to show you the ropes. to be honest, you should be paying me for getting the education, but I'm going to give you a 40% referral fee for cooperating with me to do it because I want to see you grow. And that was really how she thought. But it was like incredibly frustrating for her to show somebody how to do the business at a high level, and then they go to Thanksgiving dinner and their cousin who never sold a house says, "Boy, you're getting screwed. You're only making 40%." You don't have a fraction of the story, right? So, thanks to Julie, if you're a team leader and you're bringing somebody on, you should have that candid conversation that, look, the first three deals, you should really pay me, but here's what I'm going to do for you the first three deals,
Yes.
and you're going to leave with an education, and then you'll be able to, you know, your career will take off from there.
Yes.
Robert, I muted everybody, so you got to unmute yourself.
Hey, I wanted to address Nasir. One of the things that I did, as a newer agent is either if you're on a team, I would leverage your team statistics, or if you're an individual agent, leverage your office statistics. Because as a newer agent, right, we don't have a track record, we don't have statistics. But when you go in and say, hey, our team does this, gets this percentage, or our office does this, they don't really separate you too much individually from an office. Especially as a newer agent, as you develop, then you have like, hey, here's my track record. But you're saying, hey, our team record, here's our team sales record, here's our office team record. So I would lean on that in addition to trying to team up with somebody in the beginning.
And Brian, I was the exact same way probably 10 years ago. But what I failed to realize was that there is a tremendous, tremendous value. If I was in Scottsdale and I did my first transaction and I shared it with you, I would get, how many years experience do you have?
24.
I would get 24 years experience on my first transaction because I would see how you do it, right? And I would pay attention because the theoretical process of selling a house and the practical way of going through all the challenges and the emotion and everything that you deal with that you've learned over 24 years is incredibly valuable. Your commentary is spot on, and you might use that to get the listing, but when you know how to service the listing and you know that you have Brian on your team to deliver the service on your first deal, it's just going to make your confidence level so much higher, right? And Brian would appreciate if you have a $4 million listing, sharing it with him 50-50, and you'd probably get the listing, which you wouldn't have. So that's a win-win, right, Brian? So any
Yeah.
$4 million listing shares, are you up for it?
I'm in 100%.
All right. So I hope that, I wasn't being critical. I acknowledge and I appreciate that, hey, you can leverage the statistics. As a matter of fact, you can leverage the Remax brand. We sometimes take that for granted.
Right.
But don't leverage or forget about the talent that's around you that can help you. I learn, I'm supposed to be teaching these events, but I learn more than I give every time.
It's value over profit, think about that. And if anybody hasn't gotten that book, like we were given that book at that conference in New Jersey, I recommend everybody go get a copy of The Go Giver. Value over profit, serve others first, focus on relationships. Some great takeaways.
Well, thank you. Thank you for reading the book, paying attention, and like you flew in from Florida just to hear her speak, right?
Absolutely. We came in and it was great. I actually took her to the airport on the way out.
Yep.
What's the name of the book, David? Got people asking.
The Go Giver.
And Rob, if I could just add one last thing, getting back to the question of, being a brand new agent, the first listing presentation that I went on, I brought my manager with me. Not that I was maybe not as confident as I got to be over the years, but having him just sit there with me seemed to like really bulk up my confidence. And at the end of the evening, the sellers looked at him and asked him why he had come. And he said, because I wanted you to know that even though Robert's brand new, that he really knows his stuff. And I'm behind him, supporting him. But it gave me the confidence to go ahead and talk to these people, perhaps more powerfully than I had earned the right to be.
Well, we all have to start somewhere, right, Robert?
Exactly.
Start with calling an agent on this call too, if you guys have time. Just pick one agent in our group, call them and ask how they're doing. Just have a 20-minute discussion with somebody somewhere else, and it's going to be amazing what you guys learn off of it. It's why David and I are probably going to be on the phone in about 15 minutes.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic, productive weekend, and I'll see you all next Friday.
Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Rob.